quickly with
Start with the major event, the Silver Mine show in 1975, right?
that sound. I don't. I
Is
think
that
it was
right?
later than that.
1975 was wall drawing.
Yes, yeah, I guess that must be right.
4 and 5. We worked a full year for this show, 5 feet long.
No, 16.
16, sorry.
They're 6'10" wide.
When we carried, I thought they were 25.
I don't blame you. They're 6'10" wide and they're 16 foot long. And this is 16 foot long. And this is canvas. Of course, a mason like that size would weigh a ton. How this came about was I saw the frescoes that they brought over from Florence at the Metropolitan. And the frescoes, but they also brought along, after skinning the fresco itself off the wall, they brought along the undercoat, the plaster under that fresco. And on this undercoat was the original drawings related to the murals. And this fascinated me. This pure wall drawing, the original creation of the master artist who did the original drawing. Then he probably had a great deal of help in finishing the fresco. But this was the original creator's fresco. But this was the original creator's own marks. These were the marks that he made 400 years ago on that wall. And this was fascinating to me. And from that time on, almost, I've been, pretty heavy in this business of just pure drawing.
Now, you picked up the session, or this is generally called, these 2 panels would be called a pilgrimage, is that correct?
Right. But actually there were 3 panels that were related to the pilgrimage.
But so in a sense, in terms of construction, there's a similar theme, but you begin to do something different with the characters or the people. I don't know if you want to,
well, this group of people in a land that nobody knows about. It isn't any special place. This whole panel was titled Bird Sellers, which related to the fact that these people were selling, as they did, doves to be. How that relates to the total thing.
No, I see it as picking up the somehow the cage image earlier and the bird. You brought them together, and this figure with this one over it, with the empty cage.
The already bird is gone.
And then this figure.
Here we have
releasing
people
of the
who might have taken the bird and releasing it.
So it becomes, in a sense, the motif which brings all of these figures together. And the other thing that interests me is that they are youthful, but yet in the background we begin to see some aged figures. Is there any relationship between foreground? In the background we begin to see some aged figures. Is there any relationship between foreground and background?
Well, among the aged figures are the pilgrims, and these aged figures go through the 3 panels, and some of them are repeated figures. You would recognize them in each of the panels as being the same people. And this is where the film. They're difficult or literally impossible to pick up here.
We move to the second panel and then move in closer to the left side, and we pick up again some of the same figures in the continuing pilgrimage. But to my interest, we've gone back to the dancing, the
It's difficult to see actually. Again, we're doing. This is the dancing mouse here. It's impossible to see from the audience. And this is the man that's holding the dancing mouse. This figure, the harlequin here. The difference here now is you have 3 harlequins with a dancing mouse, and with a dancing mouse, and the figures in the background. A female figure seated on the shoulders of a male figure, with this sort of drape you would call it, and the harlequin in the center separating this drape and peering down on this poor little mouse. Well, again, the meanings of all this are pretty difficult.
It's kind of like a carnival, and the flesh and the festive occasion, the nudity, the love. This is the hay rig we'll move in on. the figures here. What about that little gravestone that the mouse is
I
dancing
can't recall
on?
what I had in mind, to be honest with you. I did have something in mind that came out of that. When I stood and looked at it, I began to put something together, but it's lost now.
Yet this, and the camera moves into a small, area, and we pick up the hayrick, and then you entitled the entire canvas.
Just out of this
here.
hayrick. The hayrick did have a symbolism that I'm not too certain of. It had something to do with lust. And this relates to the other figures throughout.
Move back into the,
Again, we have and I guess we didn't say too much about the temple in the park, but we have the same group of figures forming a temple.
but what
And then-
happens now when you bring this in the procession now? You see, in other words, you picked it up out of the canvas, and now you're putting it in the pilgrimage. You see, in other words, you picked it up out of the canvas, and now you're putting it in the pilgrimage.
Right. Well, it wasn't in the procession, it was in the temple in the park.
I'm sorry. Yet suddenly now it relates to
It
these other
appears
figures
here.
and takes on a different meaning.
It takes on a different meaning. It takes on part of the whole sequence. Now again, here's the man with the wooden leg and wearing a wooden prosthesis, an ancient one, nevertheless. And also in his hand he carries a gong. The gong comes almost literally from St. Paul's epistle. It said, if we are without charity, we are like a son of bells.
Is the birth of the child an affirmation, a positive
It's
tone
a
in
puzzlement to me, exactly. It seems to me of a recreation. In the Temple of the Park, it seems to me that the temple was the temple in the background, not the temple that the title takes its place. Because the temple that the title takes place from is the temple made up of human figures. But the actual architectural temple is collapsing and falling apart. And here we are recreating the child. The child is being in the center of this temple of human flesh.
You can't recall what your tone was, or your attitude was at that time.
Not really.
It seems, if I remember, the temple in the park, the image wasn't. I think it's either there or the image wasn't. I think it's either there or it's underneath the layers of paint. But it was the actual birth. It was a woman giving birth.
It's there. It's there.
Now this time you picked it almost like she is now offering them the child in the temple.
up through the temple. The child becomes then the offering in the temple. Through the temple, the child becomes then the offering in the temple. I think we have the next one has a detail about it. Yes, so this is the small child being offered up through the temple, through this human temple.
You suddenly got the other side. We reverse this one.
Did we? Is that?
I'm not sure. Maybe the other one reversed. This was one of the panels, the garden, and one of my favorites, presenting the garden of a close-up of Adam caught between earth and heaven, and Eve reaching for the apple and also being caught, as I don't know if this is my interpretation, in the kiss of the serpent.
It's a good interpretation. I like that.
You like that?
I didn't invent it, but you.
We can discuss the later works, but one of the things you can't do in going to the library